we bring this to order. Flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm gonna knock two birds out with one stone, if you will.
We're over here chit chatting.
If we could start with Mr. Schrader and introduce ourselves to the committee.
I'm Bill Schrader. Obviously, I live in Millersburg here, over in the Becker Ridge area. I've worked for Central Alignment Bank, the credit union. I've been in banking for 20 plus years. Born and raised over in Lebanon and Lynn County. So excited to be here and be part of this.
Dick Perdue, member of the city council, been in Millersburg for over 20 years. Spent many years auditing Millersburg before that. And
So this will be fun for you tonight.
it was last year too. They're a lot better than they used to be.
Kevin Hackstead, and I've been in Millersburg since 2011, and I'm retired from HV.
Mike Hickam, one of the city councilors. Yeah, I haven't been around here 20 years. Was Air Force for 25 and did budget for 25 years, so. So thank you to everyone who helped put the budget together.
I'm Doug Iverson. I've been in Millersburg since 2018. I've been on the budget committee now. I believe this is the third time. I'm finally trying to figure it out, so.
Scott Callan, City Council Mayor, been on the, been in the city for 26 years and, yeah, just serving the city of Millersburg for the last 25.
Mark Rom, City Council President, current budget chair. We'll take care of that here in a few minutes. Resident of Millersburg for 21 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were. Hi, I'm Ray Hunt, councilman, and I've been here since 2022 in Millersburg.
And we do have one member who's serving virtually. Let me put her up on the screen here so she can introduce herself too.
Thank you, Matt.
You bet. Correct. Miss Hedrick. If you want to unmute and just say hi to everybody, that'd be great.
Okay, hello everyone. I don't know if you can see me, but I'm here. I'm Lori Hedrick. Been in Millersburg for 20 years. A business owner in Millersburg also through Tradewinds Transportation. Retired from the Albany Fire Department about 8 years ago, and this is either my third or fourth year, I believe, on the budget committee. And I'm happy to be here. Sorry I can't be there in person.
Thank you.
Yes. He will be here a few minutes late and anything.
Okay. If you'll let the record show that he's late. Not with us at the moment. So. Next item on our agenda is to appoint a chairperson for the budget committee for the process. It's this year 2 meetings scheduled technically. Doesn't mean that there could be any additional added on as the group warrants it. I'll entertain motions or nominations for the chair.
A motion, Mark Rom. Yeah. Continuing chair.
Second.
Oh,
Third.
all right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I did. There's a nomination. Any other nominations? No? Hearing none. Call for question. Vote in favor of Mark Rom being the chair of the budget committee. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Opposed? None?
Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mark.
Adoption of last year's minutes. I think those were sent out last week for everyone to, to review. Hopefully you've had a chance to do that.
I move we accept budget committee meeting minutes for April 30 and May 2nd, 2024.
I have a correction.
Okay.
On page 4,
It says 2020.
have a Morningstar Grange entry. I believe his name is backwards. There's either comma missing or whatever. His name is Robert Richardson. And I don't think I don't know if he's a junior or not.
Yes.
I think, okay. And Morningstar is one word.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Here, I thought you were remembering something that we talked about. To my recollection, these.
Nothing important.
I'll second the approval with the change.
Okay, good. So we have a motion and a second for the amended minutes. All in favor, say aye. Same sign,
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none. Thank you. Review of the budget process. Will that be Janelle?
Yes. All right, so before we jump into the review of the budget process, this is new this year. We didn't do this last year, a couple years before, but we thought it might be helpful to kind of give a quick overview to see how these meetings fit into the overall budget process. But first, public meetings and records law. Quick review. I know some of you have seen this multiple times, but this is a committee that falls under public meetings and records law. We only probably will meet twice, so it's not there aren't as many opportunities as some of our other committees, commissions for maybe coming into conflict with some of these, but want to make you aware. So all of our meetings must be noticed and ADA compliant. The public must be able to participate with remote options, which we have in this meeting. Violation of public records and meeting laws are individual liability. So all of you who've been through the ethics training recently have had this drilled into you, but anyone who's not aware, that goes to the individual, not to the city. So if you have some sort of violation, that's a personal fine. Or correction first. Of course, they'll always try to correct the issue first. These meetings follow our city council procedural rules, which you've probably seen in the past. And if you have questions, we can provide this to you. All written communications and notes must be retained by the city recorder. So if you make any notes during this meeting on any of your materials, you need to hang on to those. You can't just recycle them. And then at the end, if you don't want to keep them for 5 years, just give them to Sachina and she'll take care of the retention on those. And then serial communications should be avoided. So serial communications would be, you're going to have a discussion outside of the public meeting with multiple other individuals and basically check with one person, and that person talks to somebody else, that person talks to somebody else. That's serial communication when those kind of communications really are supposed to happen during a public meeting. With a body this large and a quorum as large as ours is, I'm not going to try to get into numbers of how many people you can and can't talk to, but just avoid it. Just have the conversations in the public meeting. And you can always ask staff questions at any point outside the meetings. That doesn't count as a serial communication. So what is a budget? So it's a financial plan developed in accordance with fiscal policies. And this is our budget, I should say. These are general budgets that our fiscal year is July 1 through June 30th of the next year. So we're going to be talking about the 25-26 fiscal year budget. It's the basis for appropriations, which means the authority to spend money. So we have to adopt the budget in order to be able to function starting July 1. It's based on estimates of revenues and expenditures and other requirements. So that's what we're going to be going over. That's all the numbers that we'll be reviewing. So the budget process for cities is a state mandated process, and there's 4 phases. So we're in phase 1, proposing the budget right now. So staff is proposing the budget to the budget committee, and well, go ahead.
You want to talk about all 4 first?
Just keep going. Okay. The budget's drafted. It's already been drafted. Sheena was selected as the budget officer previously by council, and then we're at the first budget committee meeting. Then we'll have a second budget committee meeting next week. We have to have a public hearing to take testimony on our state shared revenues. So the money that we get from the state, one of the rules for receiving that money is we have to have a public hearing. That'll happen at the next meeting. It's already been noticed for that meeting, so next Monday. Phase 2, budget committee approves the budget. So that's that'll be happening at the end of the second meeting. If you're ready to do that at the end of the second meeting. Then the city council will adopt the budget at the June council meeting typically. And then we're set for the year. Phase 4 is any changes that have to happen during the year. We have not had any changes this year. I don't think we're going to, but if we had to do a supplemental budget, something changed after we adopted it, wasn't anticipated, there is a process to change that. Most of those don't require the budget committee coming back together. They're things that the council can do at their level, but it depends on the magnitude of the change. So all of those meetings, tonight, next Monday, and then the council adoption are all public meetings where the public has the opportunity to provide input. And that's really important in our state's budgeting law is transparency. So everyone can see what they would like to know about the budget, and it's all out there in the open, and people have the opportunity to provide input. So why do we need to follow these rules? If we don't, we can't spend money lawfully. We can't certify our property taxes. So if we just didn't do it, we could not collect property taxes next year. Never been an issue for Millersburg or probably most cities, but there have been special districts or things. There was one example they always give us in the budget training of a special district that somehow missed the deadlines and they couldn't levy their assessment that year, and then collect taxes. And again, introduces possible civil liability for staff if we spend without a budget. So we're not going to do that. We're going to make sure we have a budget in place. The budget committee. So you are made up of an equal number of council members and citizens. You might have noticed that 5 councilors, 5 citizens. You're going to review the proposed budget. You're going to suggest revisions to the budget, possibly as we go through. We're going to hold public meetings and receive public comment, and then approve the budget and recommended adoption. The last, no, okay. So that's just the big picture. That's where these meetings fit in. That's the role of the budget committee. This is an overview of how our budget is structured. We haven't gone through this before. I thought it might be helpful, but our budget is made up of 6 funds. The ones you see listed there: general fund, street, stormwater, sewer, water, and economic development. They're different kinds of funds. So under the general fund, and I need to see my notes. But under the general fund is where we have all these programs: the admin program, the Parks and Rec, emergency services, building program, equipment replacement, and city events, which was the Millersburg celebration. We changed the name this year to city events. Those programs are all part of the general fund, and it might be a little confusing looking at the budget document because they're all on separate pages, just like the street, stormwater, sewer, other funds are. But they are not separate funds. They are part of the general fund. Go ahead. The street, stormwater, sewer, and water fund are what are called enterprise funds. And those are separate funds where there's a fee charged in exchange for goods or services. So they're operated in a manner similar to a private business enterprise, which is where the name comes from. Now, you might say, we don't have a street fund, we don't have a stormwater fund. That's for fee. Sorry, we don't have fees for those. That's true, but we could. We have the authority to do that. We just are choosing not to levy a fee for those right now, or to charge a fee. But we do charge fees for sewer and water. And then the last type of fund is a special fund. It's created for a specific purpose, such as economic or community development is the example they give, to finance a particular activity. So in our case, it's for construction of Transition Parkway. It's for managing the funds that are coming in associated with the industries, the grants we're getting, and the future RISIS reimbursement. So that's our one special fund. And then under all of these funds and programs, we have what they call object classifications. So these are, you're going to see this in the budget: personnel, materials and services, capital outlay, transfers, debt services, service, contingency reserves, and appropriated. So just an overview. That's what you're seeing when you see our spreadsheet. It's just it's a spreadsheet that's been set up to follow the format that the state provides, and it has all these pieces in it. Are there any questions on that before we dive into the next?
Any questions? All right.
Okay.
So we have an opportunity for the community to come and request sponsorship donations from the city. I believe our packet had 8 applications, and then there was one on the dais tonight. Is that correct? And I have a question. By chance, well, that was submitted on time.
It was submitted late, otherwise it would have made an packet.
So after the due date of April 15th? Okay, I think it's important to let everyone know that. All right, so we have 9 to review this evening.
Sir, just a quick point of order. Can we just, for the record, just let
Oh, absolutely, sorry.
the reporter know we have our member.
And he should come already.
Yeah, there we go.
For the public too.
Yeah, there.
Thank you. Yep. I have on the first one on my list, ABC House. We'd like the individual, if there's a representative for the organization here this evening, to come up to the podium, give us a 3-minute presentation on the request. Same goes for those online, if there are any.
Believe ABC House is online.
Okay.
Yep, I'm online. Can you hear me?
Okay, let me put you on the big house TV here. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
There you go. The room can hear you now.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I apologize for not being able to attend in person. I had a conflicting meeting and wasn't able to make it to Millersburg in time. But my name is Brenna Marshall, and I'm the finance director at ABC House. I first want to thank City of Millersburg for their support over the past several years and for allowing me the opportunity to request a donation once again. Today, I'm here to request a donation of $10,000 that will go towards providing services such as medical exams, forensic interviews, family advocacy services, as well as mental health services. Last year, ABC House served over 850 kids in our local areas and provided over 1,500 unique services. To put into perspective a little bit on the cost to ABC House, a full service appointment, which is typically around 4 hours long and includes a medical exam, a forensic interview, and then possibly screening and referral to our mental health program, as well as advocacy services for however long they may need after they're seen at ABC House. It costs us around just under $6,000, and that comes at no cost to the families who use our services, which is why every dollar truly counts, so we can continue to do our work and provide these services for children and families in our local community. And I would love to try to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Questions from Ms. Martha? Sure.
How much of the $10,000 is actually used for in the facilities for the children?
All of the $10,000 is used internally within our facility.
How does the staff get paid?
How does the staff get paid?
Yes.
We do write some grants that are specifically to fund personnel costs. I would say our forms of revenue are general donations. We hold a couple fundraisers. We have lots of grants that we are fortunate to have, and only 8% of our revenue is from any sort of insurance reimbursement. So we rely heavily on grants and donations.
Thank you.
I have a comment.
Yep.
Please.
Brianna, this is Mike Hickam. So I just wanted to thank you.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the applications are actually pretty thorough, but I mean, I thought it was very well laid out, and you were definitely covered each area very well. So yeah, the application I think speaks for itself. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Any other questions for Ms. Markle? Thank you, Brennan, for your time.
Yep, thank you.
A representative for the Boys and Girls Club of Albany. Sir.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ryan Lamb. I'm the athletic director at the Boys and Girls Club of Albany. here on behalf of the club. Our donation request is for $5,000, the same one that we've been doing for the last several years, and we appreciate the city of Millersburg's contributions in the past and hope we can continue working with you guys. The $5,000 split up into two main areas that we put it towards. The first one is the Millersburg Park Youth Sport Camp. This will be our 6th year running the camp. We do it in your park. It's a 3-week camp. Each week has a focus of a different sport. So like last year we did flag football for week 1, soccer for week 2, and Olympic Games for week 3. And the funding goes to support the staffing that we need to run the camp, all the equipment and the supplies. We get them snacks and prizes and all that kind of stuff, try to make it really fun for the kids. And so that helps funding helps make it a really great experience for the kids for those camps. The second half is our winter basketball programs, our 3rd through 8th grade program. Is our biggest athletic program that we've run. As you can see on here, 465 participants this last winter. Of those, approximately 131 were City of Millersburg residents. We offer both recreational and competitive opportunities for kids, so it's not just for travel teams. We also run the programs for multiple skill levels. Funding for this league that this contributes towards is equipment, uniforms, facilities for practices and games, cost of officials, which keeps going up every year, uniform expenses, and of course, scholarship opportunities for families that need those. So that is, I think, all I've got. If anyone has any questions, feel free to fire away.
I have a question for you. Ratio of Millersburg attendees versus City of Albany out here at that, either one of those events. We've got a number of 190 but what's 50-50, 60-40? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, so for the park, it's definitely Millersburg resident heavy. Probably 75 to 80% of the kids are from Millersburg. I think that they probably just love the opportunity that there's something right here. They don't have to travel into town for anything. Our basketball program, as you can see, it's about 1/5 of the amount of kids overall from that age group.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Is there any other training programs besides basketball?
Yes, we offer year-round sports, indoor soccer, softball, volleyball, elementary track and field.
Here in Millersburg, I'm sorry.
Oh, gotcha. Most of our programs are run either at the Boys and Girls Club or offsite at the elementary and middle schools throughout the town. So most Millersburg kiddos that are playing in the sport, if they're not playing a game at the Boys and Girls Club, they're probably practicing at Meadow Ridge or Timber Ridge.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
City of Albany Parks and Recreation. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Felicia Rogers. I am the Resource Development Coordinator at Albany Parks and Recreation. So my job is to try and raise funds and get sponsors and donors to help offset the cost of putting on large scale events for Albany and surrounding area. I'm coming today to ask for funds for the Northwest Garden Air Festival, which happens this, well, I guess we're now talking about 2026, so it'll be happening the 28th, 29th of 2026 of August. And we get about 30 to 35 balloon pilots from all over the Pacific Northwest coming in, about 70 or so artists, vendors that come in and have a family fun zone. We have a night glow activity on Friday night, balloon launches all 4 of the days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, weather permitting. I learned way more about hot air balloons and when they can and cannot go into the air than I ever thought I would know. And then always a large national act concert on Saturday night, all of which is free. The only cost that is associated with this event for anybody who comes to it is $10 for parking, and that's to offset the cost of us paying a parking company that comes in and does that work for us. But this event is free for the community members to attend, and we have people that come from all over the valley to enjoy this event. And so we are coming and seeking $3,000 as we have for the past few years as the city of Millersburg to be a sponsor for that event. And as such, you get marketing on all of our event materials so that we can thank you as a sponsor and be recognized as well. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Don't you have a car show at the art festival?
We do, sorry, I totally missed the car show. Car show is Saturday morning, and that's sponsored by the Toyota of Albany. It's been a new partner for that.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, I just, it's for this year, 2025, right?
My request is actually for 2026 fiscal year. So the funding would go for the 2026 year. Last year I came in asking for funding for 2025.
That's what I thought, but it's sort of odd.
So we did, last year, we gave them the funding that will go toward this summer's event.
Yes.
So they're asking this year if we'll give them the
For next
funding next fiscal year that will go toward the event in the summer. Is the timing of the event when
Gotcha.
the?
It's the timing for the marketing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew there was a reason. I was like, what?
I was right there with you.
Sorry about that.
No, I get it.
It'll come up
Yeah.
again next year, don't
Yeah.
worry.
Running with some other stuff too. So. Thank you. That's it.
Any other questions? Thank you. Any representation for South Willamette Valley Honor Flights?
You want me to say it if you want? I got it. Let's have a mic if you don't. So Mike is unable to be here tonight. He called today because he has a family medical issue going on. He did say they're sending 54 veterans to honor flights tomorrow, and it costs about $1,300 per veteran to go do this.
How much? How much for 13?
That's what he told us today. I don't know.
I think it was in. Yeah, it went up. Yeah. From last year.
Everything's small.
Yeah, everything's coming.
Yeah, I can't imagine what jet fuel costs.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Janelle?
I don't have any other.
No answers. South Albany High School Senior All Night Party.
Evening, I'm Dana Gonzalez Avery with South Albany Class of 2026 parents. I'm here tonight to ask for a donation of $2,300 to continue a safe graduation event for our students. I wanted to thank you guys first for always being an incredible support for us over the last few years. This year, we have a very large class of students with 358 students in the junior class coming up for this 2026 year. 40% of those are residents of Millersburg. So it's quite a bit larger than the senior class this year, which is 288 students. And about 35% of those are Millersburg students. So we did increase the amount from 2,300 up from 1,500. And this is typically we go to Bullwinkle's. That way the kids will have a safe location to celebrate their achievements indoors, safe, and have a variety of things to do. Do you have any questions?
How many students usually attend this?
Typically all of them.
So,
Yeah.
most of them do go then?
Right after graduation, they receive their cap and gown and then we head out.
And it's an overnight event.
Yes.
Okay.
The number again is 35, is that right? 35% of the senior class
So-
that'd be attending is.
This year we have 288 seniors
Uh-huh.
and about 35% are from Millersburg. The class for 2026 is 358 students and about 40% are Millersburg.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to make a comment if I could. The mayor at one of the city council meetings a couple of months ago took a moment and read a thank you note that was given to us from people. And that's one of the things that kind of stuck in my craw. Before that, we never got any feedback as to, gee, we appreciate your money, you know, that thing.
We really appreciate you guys.
And I thought, well, I understand that, but it was very nice that it was sent to the city council and that we got an opportunity to read it so that we know that somebody acknowledge the fact that we, did well.
Thank you guys.
We always like to hear back and how things went.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Yeah.
Thanks.
Timber Ridge PTC.
They weren't sure if they'd be able to make it.
Okay.
When they thought about that page.
Okay.
And
So,
two more.
There's an application in front of everyone. If you haven't reviewed, please take that opportunity before we get to deliberation on all these. The Miller Cemetery Association of Millersburg.
I can speak on that if wants his representation there. Go ahead.
Is it?
The Miller Cemetery Association of Millersburg.
Yeah, he couldn't attend, so if you could speak.
Yeah, you want me to step forward or just speak from it?
Oh, please do.
How would you like, Jared? So I sit on the chair, or I'm not the chair, but I sit on the committee for the cemetery. Tim, he had surgery and he wasn't able to attend. So the cemetery nonprofit, of course, is asking for $5,500. In the packet was a breakdown of that and the goals, part 1 through 4, to spruce up and make the cemetery a little bit more functional. If you drive by currently, you can see the funding that was provided from the city of Millersburg from last year's. The cemetery hasn't looked is it looking awesome, and actually in the past has needed a lot of help. And you can see now that the landscaping is done on a monthly basis due to the funding and the help from the city of Millersburg. And it's never looked any better than now from the time I've been in the city. So with that, going forward with this coming year, the anticipated help would be to basically fix the many damaged fence pieces there, the fencing. Trees have come down and bent the posts, and to basically repair that, as well as to this one dead, but oh well, it's dead. Oh, tree, that's 3 minutes. That's all right, I'll just speak. Or I can go to
Please go to the podium.
I forgot about the 3 minutes, so I gotta speed it up. Yeah. I like it though, just cut it off. Anyways, long story short is that's the plan to repair the fencing, move eventually the fencing to make it more functional for the site, and then also get a new front gate built, and he's got some connections there to make it better than just a cyclone fence look. And that's the plan. A lot of volunteer work goes into it, and we just really appreciate any of the funding that could come forward from the city. That's all. Thank you. Questions?
Mr. Aiken. So, question for Janelle and Andrew and possibly our attorney. Instead of cash donations, and I know we don't have a large staff, but is there a way to supply or to actually perform some labor in lieu of a cash donation? I mean, it's part of Millersburg, right? It's part of us, so.
So some history on the situation with the cemetery. Millersburg has been asked multiple times in the past to take over the cemetery, and the city's decision at those times was, no, that's not part of the core part of running the city. We don't want to be responsible for a cemetery. There have been times in the past where city staff have helped with a little bit of landscape maintenance here or there, but it's never been an ongoing thing. So this actually seemed like a better arrangement in terms of they're their own organization. They're taking care of it. The city's not taking on that responsibility, but we can help contribute. Whether we could, if that was something council wanted our staff to do, we could work it into our maintenance schedule to do some mowing or different things. But that's why we are where we are today. Does that make sense?
No, it does, and I was just curious too, even if we, I mean, I know that you said we had some connections, or they had some connections for the fence, but even if we can provide some of that support for, say, the contracting piece, but I don't know if we have any different pricing power to be able to select the lower bid or something than they would, but
I would say it complicates it more. We're doing
Okay.
the purchasing than if they are.
it's just ideas I wanted to throw out. I don't know.
It's not, it's not a bad idea, but the mowing part, though, I've gone up there and mowed, multiple times, and it's difficult because of all the headstones, so it's, definitely, at one point, conversation had come up in the past council of, seeing if, staff could maybe do the landscaping or the mowing, and, I just think it would be too cumbersome. Also, I think our equipment probably is just too big, in that sense, for the mowing part. Any help on the cyclone fence, I'll probably be up there doing some of it myself, but anyways, yeah.
Okay.
Make sure the fence is fixed around the cemetery. People are just dying to get in.
Oh, yeah. I had to throw that in there.
He was waiting for it.
All right, moving on.
Council of Governments.
She had a meeting in Wallport. Is she on?
No.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the
Can I
Stand By
ask-
Me project.
So in past years, they've requested funding for Meals on Wheels,
Yeah.
which is a program they do. They said the reason they weren't requesting that this year is because they have no one in Millersburg who's using the program at this time. So they are requesting for the Stand By Me program. I was hoping they would be here to describe it because we don't know anything more than is in the packet. It's a new program, it sounds like. I can tell you, COG in general is funding is pretty up in the air with all the federal things going on. So I don't know how that impacts this particular program, but they are going to be dealing with less funding than they've had in the past.
She was here. Last one, I believe, is the Lynn County Fair. Got Shula? Out here. Yeah, this is for a fair. There. Is that right? Yeah, 15 on last year.
And Chair, ma'am.
Yes, please.
One that you didn't see an application for with the Morningstar Grange, and the reason for that is they are not actually making a new request this year. But they did not spend their money from last year. You might recall they were here, spoke with council a couple of months ago. They would like to use that money for roof replacement in the next fiscal year. So they didn't submit a new request, but they would like that money to be included in next year's budget instead. But they did not take that donation in the current year.
And through this process, we can make that
Yes.
change in allocation.
It's not even, we don't change anything about this year's budget. We'll just show it in the next year's budget. And I was also going to point out about this table. So what you're seeing there is all of the requests compared to the funding that was provided in the current fiscal year. That is in our current budget. And when we put the budget together, we put it together with the funding that you did last year. So what you're going to see in the budget is the 24-25 funding amounts have been put into the 25-26 budget. If you want to make a change and adjust, give them the amount they requested, if it's different or any changes, we can do that throughout this process. So we'll want to pause there when we get to that part of the budget and fill those numbers in to make sure that we have the correct numbers in the approved part of the budget.
With that, those that attended today and gave us a presentation, we won't necessarily make a decision today, but you're welcome to stick around for the rest of the meeting. It is entertaining, as you have already seen, so, or you're welcome to go about your evening. So, thank you. Appreciate your time. So. Overview strategic plan. No one ever wants to stick around.
That's because we fired the committee.
All right, that's, working on getting the slides to cooperate, but the strategic plan wasn't planning to go over this in any detail, as council is well aware, we're in the process of revising it right now. Any changes that we're talking about doing are not reflected in this year's budget. And what I mean by that is many of the items in the budget, we tie back to things in the strategic plan. They're all connected to things from the current version because we haven't adopted the new one yet. So next year, in the next year's budget, we will make those adjustments as needed. But most of the things that are in the budget tie to the overall areas in the strategic plan, and there weren't any significant changes, or there are no proposed significant changes to those. Go ahead and go to the next one. So our mission and vision, we're gonna have some slight tweaks to the mission statement, but it remains mostly the same. Go to the next one. Values and strategic priorities. So these strategic priorities are what you'll see when we get into the budget areas where we say this relates to community governance or this relates to safety. But unless you would like a more in-depth overview of the strategic plan, we can go ahead and go on.
Moving on.
Okay. Great. We're going to dive into the capital improvements program. So what is this? This is a planning document. It's in your packet. It's probably makes up at least half of your packet. It's fairly long. What we do in this document is identify capital projects in the next 5-year horizon. So we're budgeting for the next 1 year, but the CIP looks at the next 5 years. We're planning out projects. It has 6 sections: parks, public facilities, transportation, stormwater, wastewater, and water. And funding for these projects can come from a variety of sources. And in the document it breaks down each project's funding, where that funding is coming from. SDCs, system development charges, are one of the funding sources. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But where do these projects come from? So they come from our master plans. We have master plans for water, sewer, transportation, stormwater, parks. We don't have a master plan for public facilities. And there are also needs that are identified throughout the year or over time. So a project doesn't have to be in one of our master plans to be in our CIP, but they often are. Funded versus unfunded projects. So in the CIP, in any given section, say water, we'll have a list of funded projects and we'll go into depth on detail on each of those, what they are. Unfunded projects are things that are out beyond the 5-year horizon, or we don't have identified funding for. So this is a whole list of a bunch of other projects that we know we'll need to do at some point, but they're not in the immediate 5 years. When you look at the totals on those, they add up to a lot of money. And that's one of the reasons why, even if we aren't planning to spend a lot of money in a given area in this 5 years, we still need to be collecting those system development charges, these things that will fund those capital projects, because they may just be farther out, but we want to keep that list and keep those expected project costs fairly accurate. We have to update them every year based with escalation for inflation. It's the engineering record, news record for construction projects. Is not just your standard CPI. So that's where they come from. That's what the unfunded projects lists are. System development charges. That might be new to some of you. Those are fees that are collected when new projects go in, new development. Every new home pays 1 home's worth of system development charges in parks, transportation, stormwater, wastewater, and water. There's no SDC for public facilities. Those are set out in state statute, what they are, how we come up with what those fees are, and how we can spend them. They can only be used for capital projects in the area where they were collected. They can't be used for operation or maintenance. So when we get to, say, the water fund or the sewer fund, we may have SDCs, in a reserve, but we can't use those for the daily operation. That makes sense. So we have to account for those separately. You'll see separate sections in our budget for SDCs. This is an overview of what we're planning for the next 5 years. So we will go through each project here, because when we go to the budget, these are all going to show up in the budget. So we want to explain them now. And then that should go a little quicker when we look at the budget. So,
Janelle?
yeah,
Your value on 2025-26 is incorrect for your
oh,
totals.
is the math wrong?
Should be 250 on the end, not 0.
Not 050, okay. It may
I don't know if
be-
that means anything on these slides compared to this slide or.
It may be correct in here and wrong on the slide because those numbers.
Yeah,
are manually
it's, I
entered,
think
but-
it's correct here, but not
Okay.
here. That's all I just wanna
Okay, thank you.
verify.
Yeah, if you notice any other math mistakes, feel free to bring them up. We'll make sure they're correct in the CIP itself. Hopefully we got them right in the slides. Before you go on, Matt, real quick, I'll just say, big picture, 25-26 has a large expenditure. That's mostly Transition Parkway, and we'll go into the details on that. And then 27-28 is the next big one. It's because of two projects that are shown there. In the parks, that is construction of the North Millersburg Park is most of that 2.5 million there. We hope to get grants for that, but we don't know that we're going to get those grants. In transportation, the majority of that is construction of Millersburg Drive improvements, which we can change the year on it if we want to. You don't have to make that decision this year because we can program it this way and you can change it next year, you know, if it needs to shift out a year or something, but that's why those big numbers are there. So go ahead and go to the next one. Okay, so in parks, we have a list of projects there, and I think council has seen most of these, but the City Park Tennis Court resurfacing, that's been on our list for quite a while, actually, to do that project. We've got some quotes. We feel pretty good about that number. This will really just be resurfacing what's there. We're not rebuilding the surface. There's some cracks in it. We'll be trying to fill those cracks and then redo the surfacing. Reconstructing the whole thing, which would be the way to really eliminate all cracks and things. Do you remember what about 250,000, yeah, to do that. We're not planning to do that now. We think we can get a lot more life out of that tennis court. We're not actually getting complaints, but staff, we're just looking at it saying, yeah, it needs some maintenance if we want to make it keep going. Linear Park and multi-use path south of Concert Road. So that is Transition Parkway project. That's a big number there. It's everything that's not the road and the water main is in that number. And that is already contracted. It's underway. That's what we expect to spend in the next fiscal year. City Park restroom wall coating, again, a project that's been on our list for a while. We've had to address roof leaking before we had found out we needed to do roofs before we did this. And now we need to do some sealing up for some efflorescence. In addition to, that's part of this project. But those would be for brightening up the inside of the restroom buildings. Drainage improvements around the park shelter. We don't have any drainage around there really. We're going to put in some French drains and tie them into a drain that's in the playground to hopefully make that area a little less soggy and muddy in the future, a little more usable. And then the playground shade structure, we've been talking about at council meetings, and that'll be poles with shade cloth attached, and we think we can do that in the next year. So those are all the projects planned for 25-26. Then beyond that, 26-27, the new neighborhood park planning and development, that's the North Millersburg Park. We want to get going on, that would be design, not construction there, the 300,000. And then the next year, we'd be looking at the construction. Oh, sorry. Yeah, construction is the 2.5. City Park North Ballfield renovation. This, if we choose to do it, then this is drainage. The north ballfield, the north half of our field doesn't drain. It doesn't have any drainage. The south part does have a French drain system. Installing a drainage system in there is going to be very disruptive. We're going to be trenching through those fields, probably in the fall. It's going to mean that people can't use that part of the park for that season. Part of the reason why it hasn't happened yet. But if we want to address the drainage issues and make that north field more usable, that's what we're going to have to do.
We have a handful of little football players, I think, that practice out there that time of year, don't
We
they?
do, yeah. So we want to be communicating with them about it. That's the time of year we have to do it.
Yeah.
We don't really have another good option. So
Question on the drainage, with the 65,000, then it would be dry, it's like the south, similar to the south, and we can get that
That would be the intent. We will need to do some.
Drier, yeah.
We've
played softball out there, you're.
Yeah.
Oh, it's clean.
So.
we've done as much information gathering, figuring out as we can on the elevations of the existing system without digging it up. It's gonna be tight to tie anything into there and have any slope to drain.
That's the problem, right?
That's a challenge. It will still be better than not doing it, though. It'll still drain out. It just may not drain quite as well as we would like. You know, engineers, we always want a 2% slope on every pipe, but you're not going to get that. on these pipes. But it should. Like when we did the playground drain, we didn't have much fall there either, and there was some question of, you know, it's really going to work, and it's we haven't had any issues since that went in. So.
The reason a thought was drainage improvement around park shelters looking. Yeah, maybe trying to combine, and, you know, we've been talking about the drainage issue with the fields for 10, 15 years. It's been, I mean, a long time.
We could move that up to the 26-27 year if you want to. I wouldn't combine it with the drains around the park shelter. They're different parts of the park. They're going to drain to different places. It'd be disrupting two separate parts of the park at the same time. And we want to get in and out of the shelter area as quickly as possible because we don't want to impact people's rentals. We had to block out 1 weekend and 2 weekends. 2 weekends with the weekend between. Third, that's right. To do this work because it's right around the shelter. We're not going to be able to rent it during that time. And it's not because we're trying to get revenue from renting it. It's because it's so popular. We hate to take it out of service during the good months, but that's when we have to do it.
Yeah, I would support trying to move it up if we can. I know it's another, you know, we can move it up to 26, 27.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay. Any other comments?
I cut you off, you still.
Oh, yeah, there were just a couple more, just one more, actually. The acquisition of property for expansion of City Park. We've been keeping that out there a ways. This is the field that is to the east, not the whole property, but just the southern part of it. We've talked to the property owner about it a little bit in the past. We need to talk to him a little bit more. He's graciously allowed us to use it as parking for the celebration multiple years. If we, you know, that park is hemmed in by development. So that is the only place we could expand that park. So if we have the opportunity to acquire the property, that the direction in the past has been, yeah, we want to do that. And that number that's on there is just something that came out of our parks master plan, and we've escalated it every year. We'd have to do an actual appraisal. It's just a placeholder for now. Any other questions on parks projects?
So he hasn't expressed, he said he may entertain that, but he hasn't like, yeah, throw me a number.
We haven't had that kind of conversation.
That's pretty landlocked, isn't it? For any type of residential development or anything? Or could they make something out of that?
You could develop it to some degree. You know, I don't want to speculate on what somebody might or might not be able to get out of it in terms of development. But if you look at the dimensions of lots and other things that have been done, you could get a few lots out of it, but probably not a larger subdivision.
Cause you'd have to punch a road in there and everything else.
That's somebody would have to look at that, but it could. I don't want to say it could or couldn't be done, but
There was something attempted.
it's fairly narrow.
Is similar to that at the end of 54th. That runs. South. Yeah.
Lake Court is a single loaded street as well. It would have to be similar to that.
For context, it's not as wide as that area at Blakeport.
Right.
Perfect.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Public facilities. So this is really it's City Hall area and the fire station. Those are public facilities that aren't parks for the most part. So City Hall siding and paint, you might recognize this project from last year. We did budget for it, but it has not taken place yet. So we want to just move that to the next fiscal year. We are working on trying to get that done. That's another one you want to do when it's dry. So some of these, if we don't get them done this coming summer, then we're going to be looking at the next fiscal year, and that's one of them. But we expect to get it done this year or this coming summer, fall. HVAC unit replacement. We've got two more units that are nearing their end of life. They haven't failed, but we've been talking with our maintenance provider and they said, yeah, you probably want to just plan to replace those before they go out. They're well past their expected life. So it's good. We've gotten a lot of life out of them. LED lighting upgrades at City Hall. Again, this project was in our budget prior. The amount was different. It's gone up. But the reason is because we're looking at doing all of the lighting in City Hall. Couple of reasons for that. One, there are some incentives for the fixtures themselves. It's not a lot, but there's still some at this point. If we wait, there may not be any in the future. And two, you may be aware that you're not going to be able to buy complex fluorescents anymore or fluorescent bulbs. It's in Oregon. You're not going to be able to do that. We have to convert to LED, and a lot of places are dealing with this right now. I think there's a bill in the legislature right now to try to exempt schools from this because they have so many fixtures.
Google sells everything.
So we have a quote now. When we put this together, we didn't, but the lights themselves, the fixtures are about $10,000 and the labor will be whatever it is. So we probably won't need that full 30,000, but we went ahead and budgeted it just because we don't know the final numbers yet. Then the generator fence. We'll plan to get a fence with slats around the generator area.
Is that a code reason or is it just from aesthetics?
Just aesthetics. So that's a question. If you don't want it, that's completely fine. But that was direction that staff had been given before, that we want to get that fenced and hidden from view. It could be a safety thing as well. We haven't had any issues with it, but
I apologize if I missed it while you're chatting. City Hall siding and paint, does that include the windows that are?
no,
Okay.
that's a different project.
Why would we not include that with this if they're tearing off the siding?
I don't know that they will. I don't think we expect that they're going to tear off the
Okay,
siding.
just-
So this is not replacing all the siding. We have paint bubbling in certain places. We need to get somebody out and really look at what needs to be done. I think we may have to replace some areas. And then there's a strip along the bottom that's OSB or particle board or something that is definitely needs to be replaced. But this isn't intended to wholesale replace all the siding at City Hall. It's to mostly scrape it, figure out what's going on with the bubbling that we're seeing, and then repaint it, clean it as well. We upped this number a little bit from the previous because we also realized it's time to pressure wash the building again. This is only the siding, the lower siding, not the metal up higher. But we like to just have them pressure wash the whole building when they do it and then do their work, because if they do their work and then we come back and pressure wash up above, it's gonna run everything down and it's gonna look awful and we'll need to pressure wash again. So that's some detail of what we're planning with that project.
So what about the windows?
The windows aren't on this list right now. We brought it up in
Yeah.
council meeting recently, so shades are down, so you're not gonna see it now, but at this point, we're seeing that as more of an aesthetic issue, and we can wait to budget, do that in the next year if we would like to, but that.
Wash and find that there's some major leaks.
We might find something more, but what we addressed previously, where we replaced those panels, also, there were some, if you recall, up at the top, there were these panels that were just full of holes and rotted out. Those all got replaced then, so. The seals on the windows, apparently they're just gonna keep going bad probably over time unless we replace all of them. So we'll take a look at it again, but I don't think we have a water damage issue anymore. We got that addressed, but it's just seeing the condensation in there between the paints.
Any other questions?
There's one more project on here. Out a couple of years from now, the maintenance facility and yard. So we do need to plan for a maintenance facility. We're using the facility in the park right now, and we have been for forever. But we're outgrowing it, and we really need some yard area to store some things outside. We have space that we use for that, but it's constantly in conflict with other uses, and we'd like some covered storage as well. So this is, we don't have a site selected for that yet, although we're considering and looking at places where we might put this, but.
Would there be room to the east on that same parcel?
East on the same, where, in the park?
Yeah,
To the east is the flower bed and then the path, you mean to the west?
To the east of the parcel that we were considering for
placeholder.
for purchase.
Oh, I mean, you could, I think our intent was to get it out of the park and open up more park space. So, because
We're gonna purchase that for parking.
well, you could use it for parking, but the master plan that we did years ago actually showed expanding facilities into that area if we purchased it, fields, that sort of thing. So, you could, I think we would like to, more of what we're thinking right now is the parks maintenance, it's not just parks, I'm using the wrong term there, our maintenance facility, because they do more than parks, there's roads. We need to be able to store some of our ice melt, store our grit for when we sand, when we have ice storms.
Dump there, I mean, there's a lot.
There's
Stuff that gets dumped in
Yeah.
that area.
Yeah, and we've got nowhere else to put it right now, but
And
getting that out of the
cleanup.
park and clean
A
up.
lot of looms and stuff.
Yep. Yeah. So if we could move that out of the park and keep, we'd probably still keep the building, store a few pieces of equipment there, so we're not trailering mowers there all the time during the growing season, but get the majority out of there. It would open up more space for parking, for one, if we are going to continue having farmers markets, where they want to be is in the space that we need to use, and so we make it work. It's not ideal for them and it's not ideal for us, but we all want to make it work, right? So if we could open up that space for them, that would be better. So if we tried to do it in the park today, and we've looked at those options, we'd be trying to squeeze it into an already tight space and increasing the conflicts that we have today. So we thought it would be better to look for a new location.
Does bring up a question if I could, it was just with regarding the piece, it was going back to the park. And acquiring that property to the east that you mentioned. And you mentioned there's a park plan.
Park master plan?
Yeah, master plan. Is that piece of property in the master plan? Potentially if we acquired it?
Acquiring that is in the master plan. That's where that dollar figure comes from.
Okay, I guess what in my head, because it's like, I thought maybe, hey, so we're gonna go west. For the park, for the city maintenance.
That's all residents.
Well, there's a big parking lot. I mean, you could double the building, but then after population. And let's see, like, there's a lot more stuff going on. That's not gonna work, and getting it out from the park. But I guess what I was getting at was east side, what have we looked at, like, and this is going more back to the park plan. Is there like drawings or anything, like measurements of like what if we did acquire that property, what could we do with that?
I think there's a discussion in the parks master plan, but no drawings. If you look at the unfunded project list for parks, it does list reconfigure city park layout to accommodate additional facilities. I know there's some discussion about what if you reconfigured the ball fields and had more space in the middle for to get in more actually like a soccer field. And it may not be worth it to redoing the ball fields, or at least one of the ball fields. It's gonna be starting over for that field.
Fit in there or something. I was just curious, if I thought, is there drawings of that, but it sounds like that's too detailed.
There were no drawings that I remember, but there was discussion, and I think, well, I know our landscape architect who did the plan for us, he did look at some of that to see what could fit in, but we don't own that property, and we didn't put anything on paper in terms of layouts, other than us kind of just looking and sketching.
We would clearly explore what
could be
done. Yeah, because it might not really meet what we're wanting, right? I mean, that's what I was just.
Well, if we don't acquire it and it develops, the park will never be able to expand there. So I think the thought was try to acquire it and then figure out what we can fit in there, what we can do with it. I mean, is it another shelter? People use that shelter a ton. Is that something we want to provide more of?
I think you could put soccer field in there.
Probably could do soccer.
It's wide enough, yeah. All right, it made me think about that, sorry. That was my one. That'd probably be more.
Transportation, first one's Transition Parkway. Is everyone familiar enough with this project? You don't wanna, more information? That's how much we anticipate, I should have said this at the beginning, with the park, with the streets part of it, and then with the water part, we are estimating where we're gonna end this fiscal year in terms of payments to the contractor and what's gonna be in the next fiscal year. So we have to try to guess how much we're gonna, where construction is gonna get to. We feel pretty good about that, but we may end up, if you look at last year's number and you look at the proposed number and you put those two together, that is more than the total project cost. But if we don't budget for the amount that we might spend, if more of it gets pushed in the next fiscal year, then we gotta come back and do the supplemental budget, so. Bridge replacement, Waverly Drive at Cox Creek. This is, do you wanna talk about this one?
Yeah, so this is the bridge replacement project that leads to Talking Waters Garden. And it's currently being administered by Lynn County. We have a local bridge program funding through the state for that. So that amount that you see there for the 74,000 is our match funds for both the design and the well, for this will be for the construction and finishing the design. We want to add something to that.
Well, in the next fiscal year, the 400,000.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, sorry. So the 74,000 is the design, yeah.
And right-of-way acquisition and all the pieces before construction.
Yep.
And I know council already heard this, but for budget committee, we did have to, the project costs were coming in higher than what ODOT originally budgeted for us with this project for various reasons, some of them being on ODOT's end, and they did increase that funding amount. So, everything except for the match, the 10.27% match that we have to do. So we're very happy to have gotten that funding because that bridge really needs replaced.
Is that the same for the construction in 26, 27 that we only do at 10%?
Correct. Yeah, 10.27%.
What's the additional right of way acquisition?
So there's gonna be additional right of way needed to make sure the bridge has, it's currently too narrow. So they want to have a sidewalk on there for people to be able to walk. And then also the fill requirements for being able to grade it correctly. At the corners.
So the new grade of the bridge is a little bit above?
It'll be a little bit higher. They're trying to keep it as low as possible, but also there's stormwater requirements.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to have some type of retention stormwater facility, yeah.
So on the north side of that bridge is Talking Water Gardens, and the city of Albany, city of Millersburg, really own parts of that. But the west side is Oregon Parks and Rec.
Yep.
And then on the south side, one side is City of Albany, the other side is ATI.
Yep.
So just to, and then the approaches, right? So if you widen the bridge and the road is narrow, then you have to taper to the bridge. So there's a little bit of right of way that will have to be acquired from ATI for this project.
Potentially some temporary.
Yeah.
easements to be seen.
Is there gonna be a weight limitation on that bridge?
Transportation, not after it's completed. Right away, it's a very, right now,
Yeah, I think it's all.
There questions or should we go on?
Any questions?
think something's,
Councilor Hicks?
something's brewing down here.
Forehead said, just trying to figure out where you saw it right away, cause I don't.
She said, oh, we said it.
I'm like, where's?
I couldn't find it either. Too, yeah.
within that 74,000.
They're not
Where did you
listening
see
to this,
this?
I know, I'm sorry.
I know, it's hard, if you can't, your eyes wanna glaze over. Alright, try to make it more exciting, street lighting. This would be putting street lights on existing poles on Woods Road, we've been talking to Pacific Power about it for a little while. The Woods Road shared use path, north, it's called north because we're talking about Alexander to the north. And we're working on design now, or going to get it moving forward, yeah. So it spans a couple of fiscal years also, actually 3 of them.
So the work going on down there isn't part of this project?
That's Pacific Core doing work with it had to do with the substation. This is like, this work has been coming for a couple of years. But basically it's backbone work, and once they're done, we'll have an even more redundant system than we have now, but they've got to connect that line up to Military Drive, and because they have to go under the BPA line, they gotta bore. So they might as well bore the whole
So
thing.
that was last year's budgeting of that for the power plant and all that?
That's not our project, we don't budget for it.
Oh, okay, so,
Yeah, it's completely their project. It was supposed to have happened at least a year ago, but it got delayed. So our project is building a multi-use path along Woods Road. We've been talking about that for quite a while. It's gonna take multiple years because we do have right-of-way acquisition that we've gotta do for that, and there's wetlands and permitting. So wetland permitting is gonna take at least a year. And then construction, so. Crosswalk at Evergreen at Woods, this came up in the last council meeting, I think. This is there was some concern that people coming from the neighborhoods to the west wanted to cross over to the sidewalk, and there wasn't really a good way to do that. We realized there's no ADA ramp on the east side to receive them, so this work would build an ADA ramp, stripe and a crosswalk. We're not planning a beacon or anything for this one at this point because of its proximity to the intersection, and then also with the Woods Road shared use path, it will cross Woods Road a couple of times, and those crossings will probably have beacons. We haven't done the whole design, but we're expecting that, so. So that's what that project is. And then in the next year, we've talked about both those projects already. And the year 27-28, Millersburg Drive, full street improvements, Woods Road to railroad tracks. So this project's been on our list for a long time. It doesn't have to be done in that year, but we do have funding that we're supposed to use by a certain date toward it. And you'll see that in the budget when we get to it. It's set aside as another dedicated reserve fund. So this is what we're anticipating the whole project cost would be, though. So you can think about that as we get in. It's gonna cost a fair bit of money. The funding we have set aside, it was frontage fees from the developer who developed where Summit is today. So they did pay into it. At that time, the city was not having the developers build half street improvements, so we just took the money and said, we'll do it sometime in the future.
That fence improvement that's going around the cemetery. Has there been any coordination basically between, maybe we could move that fence a little bit and make the road a little bit easier?
So we actually went through a process with the cemetery a year or so ago, maybe. Almost two, yeah. To clean up some right of way around there and address where the fence, where we right of way extended to the cemetery and where if the cemetery extended to the road. And but the short answer is where that fence is today, we don't want to be building inside of it. We don't even want to be building right up to it. This design was done years ago with the rest of the Millersburg Drive. I was actually the engineer who did the design, not before I came to work for Millersburg. So I'm pretty familiar with it, but we had to skinny it up there, lose the bike lane right by the cemetery. The reason we don't want to touch that fence or go inside it is no one knows exactly where all the graves are. And it's a historic pioneer cemetery. And we don't want to get into that at all. So that's our reason for working with the cemetery.
So is the road gonna be skinnied there, or is it just going to go around?
It will appear to shift. The right of way will be the same on the north edge, but it will shift to the north edge of that right of way, and we'll have to lose the bike lane through that section. So the pavement section will narrow up a little bit, but you're coming right up to the stop sign intersection anyway. So we'll have to refresh that design because it's been many years since it was done, but and we have new intersections now too with the two streets.
Do we necessarily have to lose the bike lane or just share it and paint it on?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll do something like that, like it'll be bike lane ends or put the sharrows, as they call those. Yeah, we'll figure that out with the design when it's done.
So it's doable with the right of way that we have. We don't need to acquire property.
Well, we'll need to revisit the design, but as previously designed, it was doable.
Oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
Doesn't mean we wouldn't look at it and say it'd be better if we could acquire some right away.
Sure.
To do it, but, yeah. Okay. And anything else on transportation?
Houses are right, so.
Yeah, it's been.
So I have a question for you, and I get it, it's unfunded. But widening the shoulder, and providing bike lanes along Old Salem Road. Wouldn't that be a county responsibility to get back?
So, yeah, the short answer is yes. When the TSP, Transportation System Plan, was done, they put in all the projects, right? And including Old Salem Road projects. So it is a county facility. You're right, that is their road, but we partner with them on a lot of things. And if there's something we really want to see happen on Old Salem Road, but it's not in their program to do it, we may choose to help fund parts of it. That's a decision that could be made in the future. So at the time, they have to just put all the projects in our, if you look at our unfunded list, there's some other things in there too that have to do with Old Salem Road, but that's the reason why.
Along Councilor Hickam's question, $1,300,000 for the multi-use path along Old Salem Road. Would that be our responsibility in conjunction with Lynn County, or how's that being represented?
Well, depends how it gets done.
Okay.
That is our priority, not theirs right now. So, for example, renting Falls property, they are gonna be building the section of multi-use path along Old Salem Road there. That was a requirement of our development or of our land use process. That they build it, and we worked out with the county, like, okay, we'd like you to extend the right of way here because it should be in public right of way. But we, Millersburg, will maintain the path. So that's the agreement we came up with. They're not necessarily wanting to build and maintain a lot of multi-use paths in Millersburg. Not that they don't support the idea, they do, but we're the one requiring the path, asking for the path. We'd like it to be in there right of way because there's right of way right there. It needs to be public, but that's the arrangement we came to.
Willing to play?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and even the sidewalks, I'd be curious where exactly we're talking about putting them in, because do you really have a lot of foot traffic down there to justify $300,000?
So the sidewalk. Which
South
project
side.
number?
So it's number 2 on the unfunded pedestrian bike projects.
Is that the one you're talking about, Mike?
Yeah, the sidewalks on the south end of
Yeah.
Old Salem Road.
So this is so Lynn County has done, they had a project a few years ago to get a lot of sidewalks at the south end. But we have a section that goes by the industries, north of the Truex Creek Bridge up until by the cemetery here, where there's no sidewalk. So that's what this is. This is trying to get some sort of pedestrian connection. That's a hard area. There's not much room. It's ODOT right of way and county right of way, and yeah. But that is a goal because there's nothing in there. There's no way to get from between those 2 points by foot without being on the road or the shoulder.
But, and then again, would we even want this on the list until we know what ODOT's gonna wanna do with that area?
Well, it's on the list now because it was in the TSP unfunded project. When we're gonna revisit the TSP.
Okay, so
that we
that's
got
a
soon.
different-
So we can have that discussion again.
Okay. I'll hold my question. I'll withdraw it.
Good question. I think it's a good time to have that discussion again. Stormwater is very short. We have one project on here, not in the coming fiscal year, but the next one, to do some inlet reconfiguration. That's monitoring Millersburg Drive when we get heavy.
How's everyone doing? Do we need a little personal break, anyone? You could?
We got one of those.
You got one left? Okay. We're gonna recess for 5 minutes. Thank you.
That's why I kept one taking. Like,
TMI.
Thanks.
It's gotta be a lot of fun.
Oh, no.
Sorry to interrupt. you, but I think it was well deserved.
Let's just say, it.
Then
I'm
your job.
tired.
Please continue. I think you're on stormwater.
Yes, on stormwater.
Talking about
Alright.
Trump's proposals.
Stormwater's an easy one,
Why?
or a short
Why are
one.
we discussing it?
We have the one project plan there for the next year to address an issue that, this didn't come out of our stormwater master plan actually, because this issue came up after the stormwater master plan was done, but we got a little bit of an issue at an intersection when certain conditions happen, and we just want to reconfigure one inlet, and that should address it. Wastewater, so this coming year, we're gonna be doing a project to repair manholes at Burkhart and API force main discharges. So mouthful, but basically we have places, 2 manholes inside Talking Water Gardens where our pump lines from our 2 lift stations, sewer pump stations discharge, and they have these drop structures is what they're called. We don't want that, just that wastewater discharging at a high rate of speed pressure into just an open manhole. It dissipates some of that energy. And they're just very old. They've been there since the system was constructed in the late 70s, and they're about to corrode and fall off, and we need to get them replaced before that. Because they're active lift station and the configuration, it's a bit more complicated than just going in and taking it off and putting a new one on. So that's a project Andrew's been working on. It's about to go out for quotes.
Yeah, about it.
Yeah, in about 2 weeks, and we'll plan to do it.
Just gonna ask, that's what we just discussed in council,
Yeah.
just.
Council's heard about this already, yeah. AMWRF capital projects, so Albany Millersburg Water Reclamation Facility, this is the wastewater treatment plant. So Albany every year has a list of capital projects they're doing at the plant. We own 10% of the plant, so we pay for 10% of the capital projects. So that's our part of those projects. They are broken out in the actual CIP, what they are. But they're doing those projects, it's just our part of them. The next year, ATI pump replacement. So the ATI sewer lift station, called ATI because it's basically on their property. It's within their property on a little postage stamp that we have an easement for. And we upgraded that lift station about 7 years ago. And we knew even at the time that if we had industrial development, we were going to need to upsize the pump. But at that time, we didn't have any idea what those flows would be. So we just designed it with the intent to upsize pumps. So that will be driven by our new industries coming in and paid for by their system development charges because it's increasing the capacity. So that's what that project is. Then we have some more capital projects at the plant.
Question for you on that one. Do we need to bump that pump replacement up?
No, that
So
that
we're-
timing is okay because they won't begin operation until fully until that next year. And it's not that we don't have any capacity in the pump station. We probably can it's just pushing closer and closer.
Okay.
And that one, just because of the configuration of the pipes and the elevations coming in, that can't be offline for more than a few minutes before we have a sewer overflow. So we don't want to overload that lift station. It is
Few minutes.
7 or 8 minutes, I think is the,
Wow.
yeah. And no, it depends on what the flow's coming in.
So more time if you did it like boom. More time if you did it like midnight.
Right, I mean, it depends on the time of year, it's higher flows in the wet time of year, as much as we try to keep stormwater out of the sewer
I guess-
system, some gets in. And then, yeah, when there's less usage. But one project you don't see on this list yet, but we've talked about and done a feasibility study for, is a new route to the treatment plant. It's not on the list yet because we don't have it defined quite well enough in the timing to put on the CIP list, but probably next year we'll be looking at adding it in there. So just keep that in mind, but we need to do this pump replacement in the near term. Let's see, in the 27-28 year sewer for Morningstar Road realignment. Morningstar Road connection up by Loves, there's a piece of road there that we have an intergovernmental agreement with the county, or the county would build the road because Morningstar is a county road right now. They would build the road, we'd be responsible for putting the water and sewer in. They build it up to city standards and improve the existing Morningstar as well, and then turn it over to the city for. That's how it works with the county, that they've got to improve the road to city standards for us, or we might have an agreement where we take jurisdiction and they give us money to do that. But in this case, they would actually do the construction. That agreement was reached when Samaritan, as the owner of the property, first bought it and was talking about developing. It has been on hold, kind of on the back burner for a while because Samaritan's not doing anything right now, and they're really going to be the drivers of the timing. So we keep it on here a couple years out because that could happen at any time, and we'd still like to see it happen soon. But we'll have to work with the county on when it actually gets done. There was a period of time a couple years ago we talked to them about getting it done, and they said if we have to do it, we'll do it, but we just don't have the staff capacity right now. You know, they were just super busy, and there was no drivers, so it's going to continue being on the list. But our cost parts are in sewer and water, not in streets. Make sense?
Question, so, do we already have right of way with Trade Winds?
The right of way is, yeah.
And Samaritan?
Yeah.
So that right of way is already established, and then,
the county has the right of way, not us.
for the county, and they'll build is it all driven by Samaritan doing something with the property, or?
Technically, the agreement between Millersburg and Lynn County is driven by both of us when we decide. But Millersburg has a separate agreement with Samaritan that would drive the timing of it. And they're just MOUs. It's not,
Right.
yeah, and they've.
I was just wondering, because I don't see Samaritan doing anything with that property.
It could be a future property owner.
Yeah, well, yeah, and so I was just wondering if we could see that road get built before that property gets.
Yeah, we could push that forward with the county.
But the county's gonna have to okay, we're ready to pull the trigger. So we're in once a year, we're saying, hey, are you ready to do this thing? Probably around budget time.
It's a conversation we want to start having with them again. Yeah, because the reason why this was done at the time was everybody recognized that in the past, someone had wanted to develop that piece of property, and access was the thing that killed the project. The fact that there was no decent access, and Morningstar Road itself, with its configuration right now coming off of Old Salem, and then it's not improved. It wasn't going to work for that previous project, or that's what killed the project, is what I heard. So both the city and county thought it would be best, if we want to ever see anything develop up there, we're going to have to figure out a better way to get this road, this access. And that's when the county actually, I think, are the ones who came up with the new alignment, what they wanted to see, and the plan for what to do there.
Is it worth, I'm gonna guess that, Bill, you probably don't know what we're talking about, but is it worth going on showing, or do you?
I'm familiar with the area, yeah.
You're familiar with that road coming in?
Yeah, and I heard Samaritan owned that property
perfect.
back there and stuff.
Cause
I drive through it regularly, living over there, so,
oh, okay. That's where you live over there?
well, somewhere around,
Yeah.
but.
I don't know if it's worth.
Well, it's pretty easy to
Yeah,
tell you.
yeah.
because the
Yeah,
driveway
you
is
got it
very
there.
easy to see.
Right there.
So as you can see it faintly drawn in with the lines, that's right of way that's already been dedicated and exists. And the idea is you have an intersection here, and the traffic would turn here and then go north into that project site without having to come over here and disturb all the residences that are on that site.
So it actually goes to the first corner?
Corner,
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Yep.
see, that seems different than I thought.
Yep.
I thought it hooked back around and lined up with Millersburg Drive.
Yeah, and at the time, we had the conversations, the county was open to, so this is, Morningstar would become ours, as well as, well, this is Morningstar too, whatever the names end up being. Whatever we wanted to do with this intersection, if we wanted to keep it, make it a right in, right out, that might be a good solution, you know. It's a little bit farther around for people who would, turn and come this way, but those are design things to be worked out in the future.
Yeah, the road's gonna be right there at the end of that.
Probably be our
You
first.
can already see it
traffic
spelling
light.
a trail of a road there.
Yeah.
basically.
But
that's gonna be a nightmare.
Yeah, stop light, there's already a
Yeah.
lot of traffic there.
I mean, that's gonna be a,
Yeah. Or this one, yeah. That one I think is worse with those trucks now.
yeah, that's what I mean, with all the trucks
Yeah.
pulling out of Loves and then out of there, it's gonna be a mess.
The county did envision that as a signalized intersection lining up with Love's entrance. There definitely is design work that would have to happen to make all of that work. It's out there ways. We're just, again, keeping stuff.
Sort of just kicking it down till
We're,
county says, hey, let's do this thing.
Or a developer comes along.
Or,
and
yeah.
and we may
already.
choose to.
Yeah, which it could, I mean, Samaritan does eventually get rid of it, they're not big on getting rid of their property, so who knows?
They have a new leader now, who knows?
Yeah, that's true, yeah, that's right, there is, yeah.
All right, I think that's everything on the wastewater. Are there any other questions? Water. So the first project on here is already awarded. It's transferring water services from the old asbestos cement pipe in Old Salem Road to the ductile line that exists today. So that's underway. Second project, system expansion to industrial property south of Concert. This is Transition Parkway. This is the water main associated with Transition Park.
Did have a question on the unfunded list
For
the wastewater.
wastewater.
If we need to replace that impeller, does that not need to be, do we not need to figure out how to get that? Or is it just not bad enough that we need to worry?
Which one?
It says
The
the
lift
Morningstar
station
pump
impeller.
impeller.
Oh, that's one of those future projects when we, it's not bad now. We put that on the list when it was brand new. It said in 20 years, we're gonna need to replace this.
Oh, okay.
For 10 years, it was probably 10 years.
Never mind then.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to stop you. I just happened to squat down.
Oh, it's a
and I
good
was like,
question. Yeah, some of these projects are not projects that are needs today, but they're needs we know have in the future. Okay, back on water. Transition Parkway is the second project. Most of the water line is in right now. And so we're only carrying a little bit over just for finishing stuff out for next year. We have some projects at the water treatment plant. So AMWTP is Albany Millersburg Water Treatment Plant. And this one, we listed the project separately for whatever reason, differently than wastewater, but we have a raw water pump station valve, membrane replacement. Those two projects, that's our share. At the treatment plant, we own different shares, different percentage of share at different parts of the facility. So for the treatment itself, we own 16.7%. For the intake, it's 16.7, but for the storage, we own 50% of it. So it's all listed in our intergovernmental agreement with them. But this is our share of these projects. So the membrane replacement, membrane is the main treatment part of the plant. That's what treats our water. We're really fortunate to have the system. It's very good. It gives us really good water, very high purity water. Membranes just have to be replaced over time. And so that's what this is. However, and you'll see a little bit in the budget this later, the drawdown on the reservoirs has been causing some issues with our treatment system and clogging up those membranes as well. So it's a little hard for Albany to say whether it's accelerating our replacement needs or those just, we were gonna have to replace them anyway, but you'll see in the budget, there's a study for a pre-treatment system on this.
So question. Since, because I was gonna ask that question on if these reservoirs are gonna impact our water system in any way that we need to worry about anything else.
Yeah,
of course we do. So, Alan, you might wanna, come in on this just to give me your opinion. But since the state was the one pushing to draw down that reservoir, is there anything that we need to do to push on the state to fund any type of upgrades or fixes for our water treatment?
You want me to, I'll share what I know and you tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, so the drawdown at Green Peter and then what's gonna be going on in Detroit, that's based on federal litigation.
But the
and
feds didn't wanna
settlement.
do it.
and settlement
Our Fish
out
and
of that.
Wildlife, supported by our governor, wanted to do it and push the feds in court.
It's federal law and it's coming from as a order coming out of the federal district court. So there has been some, the governor's office did come in and ask for some on behalf of Sweet Home and the other local municipalities to revisit the settlement and the schedules of the drawdowns to try to not have as great of an impact on the water facilities. And so the Corps has indicated that they're going to try to be a little bit more willing to stop that in light of some of the damages to that. But a claim against the state isn't entirely clear. Now, politically, continuing to advocate with state agencies and the governor's office to support with funding from studies, to support with infrastructure upgrades if need be. Yeah, there's a lot of communities all throughout the valley are there. So did that check out as far as consistent with your recollections as well?
Yeah, and I can tell you, so Sweet Home and Lebanon so far have been the most impacted by this. Albany and Millersburg have been a little bit impacted by this, but due to our location, our treatment, just it's been easier for us to deal with. We're just farther downstream too. But there's been a lot of discussion with the state, different agencies at the state. Oregon Health Authority also regulates drinking water and trying to help them understand what our issues are and how they regulate us when we have issues. Like we might be out of compliance because of this. We can't control that. So,
and there is some flexibility. I believe the Army Corps already agreed that they were going to delay some of the anticipated drawdowns this coming November out of the and pushing another.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of political pressure on the Corps to try to mitigate the cost impacts. It does feel like though that some of these levels are drawdowns are inevitable. It's just about how quickly can they stop it, and is there money available for studies and understanding, that. But I haven't heard of the litigation being reopened in any way.
Detroit and Salem.
Yeah.
Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit will impact Salem.
Yeah.
Salem and all those cities.
One challenge, and I think it's been hard for the state and federal, especially agencies to understand, is every treatment system is different. So each treatment system is impacted differently. We're all being impacted, but the magnitude and type of impacts are not the same. So each one is going to need to figure out how to deal with this. And I think from the city standpoint, if this was a known thing when we designed and built our plants, we would have accounted for this higher turbidity at certain times of the year. But that wasn't the case. Now this is a change in conditions all of a sudden, and our plants just aren't built to handle it. So yeah, if we have to build pre-treatment facilities, and that might be what most of us need to do to deal with the sediment and take it out of the water before it goes into our treatment plants, fine, but you're operating that for what, 2 months out of the year, and you're paying for something that's going to sit there for 12 months. But that just might be what it ends up.
So another question then, just a follow-up to that. So obviously, was it last year was the first year? Obviously that year was horrible. I mean, Peter hadn't been literally drained to a creek for decades. So do we see that as over time, more and more of that sediment will be washed out and that's not something we have to deal with, or do we know?
That's some people's theory.
That's some people's theory.
Yeah. It was advertised to work that way, but in the messaging, and that was the expectation, but it hasn't.
I think we will need years to know.
Years to see.
And just the fact that you draw it down, now you're exposing a lot of soil to additional erosion on the banks that's not normally exposed. So, how much new sediment are you introducing? Yeah, maybe optimistically, we can all hope that will be the case, but I don't think anyone wants to count on it. Anyone who runs a water system wants to count on it. All right, should I keep going?
Please.
Of those projects in fiscal year 25-26 that are left. The water main replacement for corrosion is the only other one that's a city project, the other Millersburg project, the other ones are treatment plant projects. And I know council's well aware of this, we've had some corrosion issues in one part of town, Siuslaw. And we're going to need to replace some sections of water main. We are going to be working to figure out how extensive we need to be with that replacement. But it's kind of hard to know until you dig it up. So the reason is highly corrosive soils, pipe that's not that old, really. It should last 50 years and it's about 20 years old. But when that went in, we just didn't know as much about corrosion in this area, I think, and didn't take as many precautions as we do now. So anything going in now has polywrap on it, has anodes, that sort of thing to address corrosion, but this older piping in the high corrosive soils doesn't. So we'd like to get ahead of that and not continue to have emergency water leaks where we have to tear up the street and patch it. 26-27 has a continuation of the water main replacement. We need to start design and investigating this coming year, and then there'll probably be construction the next. And then the other projects are all at the treatment plant. 27 and 28 has a typo, but Morningstar Road realignment for the water is what we just talked about for sewer. It's the same thing as the water component. And the third project on that meter replacement, that is, Albany has let us know that they're going to be changing out their water meters in the entire city for these automatic meters, AMI automatics, I think. Meaning you won't have meter readers going out and reading them anymore. Each meter will send a signal that is automatically imported into the software system, and you can instantaneously know what those are. So it'll save money in the long run in terms of meter readers and time. But replacing all your meters in your system at once is a big upfront cost. We really are going to need to do it when they do it, or at some point I think they're going to do it over 3 years, so we can do it one of those years. Because right now they stock and supply all our water meters. So if they're not going to stock them anymore, the kind we have, then we would either have to start stocking them and storing them and replacing them. And we would like to keep that with Albany. The system we have works very well. We don't have this kind of inventory on hand. We don't have a place to keep it. We don't have the expertise to deal with the water materials side of operations. So that is to replace all of our meters in Millersburg. That's a pretty high level number. We'll have better numbers in the next year as they're getting actual quotes for it, but they're going to do their whole system. And it'll make our utility billing side of things easier.
Well, what was done just 2 years ago?
We replaced a chunk of our older meters that needed replaced. And we had scheduled to do that every year for like the next 5 years, so we just stopped that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, if they had known this was on the horizon a couple of years ago, we wouldn't have done that project. But this will be nice in the long run, and it probably saves whole city money.
Water meters.
Maybe. I don't know.
We're gonna have, yeah, exactly.
28-29, the one project on there, transfer services from AC Pipe in Old Salem Road, south of Tricks Creek. So what we're doing this coming summer affects our 3 major industries on the north end of, well, not north of Old Salem, in that area. And then this would be the remainder of the water services that are connected to that old line that are on the south end of town. And some of them are residential, some are small commercial. There's a bunch of them, but they're pretty small. So that would be the last project to get all of that AC water line out of our active system. Any questions on water?
Yes, one. So for unfunded, number 5014, underserved Northeast Industrial Area, where's that at?
You know where Love's is at? South of Love's is, well, Dave Harm's business area back there is pallet recycling area. There's no fire protection back there. That whole area south of Love's, north of Steelhead Run doesn't have anything back in there. And it's it's a concern from a fire protection standpoint. So we've been trying to find ways to get water into there. You know, any project we've had several projects proposed or looking at going into one of the parcels in that area, and that's one of our conditions is that they will run a water main back there that we can have hydrants off of. None of them have quite happened yet. It's on the unfunded list because we don't have a plan to do it, but it is a project we think needs to be done.
Well, that's what I'm curious on. I thought normally when cities ran water and sewer and stuff, the property owners paid depending on their,
If we have a development that requires it, then that requires water, and they're gonna have to extend the main to get it there, then yeah, they'll pay for it. Millersburg has not done like an assessment of the properties to pay for a public improvement project. That is something cities can do, but we haven't done that in the past.
Know how they can afford their fire insurance over there. If they don't have any fire hydrants in that area, you would think they would want this because it reduce the overall cost, but. They wanted to know how many feet one was from my house when I bought it.
It's 500 feet. something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, 500. They probably have. No, the closest one is out on Old Salem, right? Yeah.
Well, they do have.
You and I talked about this.
We were just talking about this.
That's right.
There is from Steelhead Run, and I can pull up the map if that would be helpful, but there is a temporary way of getting water back in there. They put a pipe in that you could connect up to if you needed to. That was a condition of something else getting. The challenge is there's a creek there, so getting across the creek is part of it. So that's the temporary part, is getting across the creek. If they had a big fire back there, there is a way to get some water back there, but it's not. Will anybody remember that?
It's like an in-ground dry hydrant system. So basically, we can pump from the street down, and then it'll pump another area, a hydrant where an inch closer to the fire could hook into. There's a couple places actually in Albany that are like that too as well.
Yeah, it's not ideal. It's on the list because it was identified as this is an area where we could use. It would benefit the whole city from a fire protection standpoint to get the water there. It's been discussed, so I'll just mention it. When Love's went in, that could have been an opportunity to get water main extended through their property back to there. It wasn't identified at the time when it went through planning. This was years ago. None of our staff were here at that time, but that was probably the opportunity that we could have gotten some water, at least partway back into there. So we've been looking for opportunities ever since to try to get that done. Last slide here on CIP. And this is, I thought this might be helpful as we're looking at our general fund reserves, beginning fund balance, unappropriated money, basically anything in the general fund that we have in reserves. When we look at our capital projects that are planned, this is the money that right now would have to come from the general fund to pay for these. So you notice there's nothing in water or wastewater. Those are fully funded within their own funds. For stormwater, we've got the one project because stormwater has no funding source of its own. It would have to come from general fund to do that $25,000 project. Parks, public facilities, and transportation. If we want to do those capital projects, those funds are going to have to come from the general fund. When we get into the budget, you'll see this year, we have about a $4 million combination of reserves and unappropriated ending fund balance in the general. So $4 million in savings, basically. By the time, we get to that 5 years, we expect if we want to do all these projects, that we would have the funds to do that because we are building up our reserves every year. But if we do all of this, we will spend a lot of it. So when we get to that part in the presentation, we'll talk a little bit more about what those reserves are for, but we need to keep some and just, we have contingencies in our budget and for operations, like, well, how much of the city's regular operating budget do we want to have in savings? Just like in your home budget, how many months worth of savings do you want to have if you lose your job? we lost all our revenue. So just for perspective, wanted to show you what the capital needs would be and how that relates to that beginning fund balance. Or unappropriated. Any questions? Okay. And for council, when we were having a discussion on the fuel tax possibility and we projected out quite a ways, we do project our reserves to continue to grow. And maybe at a faster rate once these new projects come on board. So I don't want to make it look like we don't have the money to do that, but just keep that in mind. So we're ready to jump into the next section. It's 8 o'clock. I'll tell you, in years past, we've gotten through some more before we've taken the break to the next meeting, but that's completely up to you.
How's everyone feeling? What you're going to present, what's the time?
How much time?
For the next section?
Yeah, is that the message?
It's the budget message. There's a section that we've done in the past on city trends and history that I think we can probably move through much faster, or most of you've heard it multiple times, and the information is presented in a lot of different places. And then we'll go over some of our comparisons to last year, or to the current year and to last year. And that's usually where we get to before we dive into the actual budget at the next meeting. So
Probably an hour.
probably an hour. Maybe we might get through it in 45 minutes.
3 hours.
No. Unfortunately. I mean, really, if you want to skip over a lot of the history part, we can probably do it faster. Depends how many questions you have too.
None. My question is, how much time do we have left? You're saying to go through another hour before we knock off. How much time? The rest of the budget.
Depends how much detail you want to dig into, which we certainly can. Last year, I believe, you chose not to dig into a lot of detail on every line item. The projects is a lot of it, and that's why we go over those in detail.
There's a lot of donations this year.
The donations, it depends how long how long you want to talk about donations at the next meeting. So, it just might mean the next meeting is long. So do you want to go longer tonight? We could go another half hour if you want to, and then just say whatever's left for the next meeting, or we can break it.
Okay, either way. I don't want to make it a marathon.
No. 9 o'clock, we're gonna kick us off at 9 o'clock. So that's my position. If the rest of the
I
committee.
spent all day at a tax meeting. I don't know that I'm 8 hours. I don't know that I want to spend another 2 hours here.
Right.
So 1 hour? Can I get 1 hour from you?
Hard stop at 9.
All right. Or stop at 9.
Okay.
Right here, 8:30. You don't.
Maybe we can get through it by then. We don't need to talk about the budget calendar, you've seen it.
Yep.
Budget message, I do have to read you the budget message. It is a requirement under state law that we deliver the budget message to you at this meeting. So if you've already read it.
I was wondering why it's always red. It's actually a state law.
It doesn't say it has to be read aloud, I don't believe, but it says it has to be delivered. So, okay. So.
It's delivered. It's in my
delivered.
hands.
I'm gonna read this and maybe I'll find some spots that I can notes, but.
No, you got it.
Okay. The past years saw the fruition of several plans and projects, some that had been in the works for many years and represent significant next steps for the city. So we're talking about Ball, Timber Lab, Transition Parkway, Gordon Trekking. Administratively, this included execution of the succession plan for the city manager position, hiring of a new engineering services director, city engineer, and reorganization of some staff roles. We redid Sheena's job description. So the beginning of 2025 was marked with the commencement of construction of 2 large industrial projects, DeLorean, now identified as Ball Corporation, and Timber Lab. Ball Corporation has been working with Millersburg to select a site for Project DeLorean and progressed to construction since 2018. So that's been in the works for a long time. They broke ground on a new aluminum beverage can manufacturing facility west of Old Salem Road and south of Concert Road early in 2025 and intend to begin operations in the spring of 2026. Timberlab moved very quickly from considering a site in Millersburg in early 2024, west of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Portland Western Railroad, to also beginning construction in early 2025. These projects are long-term investments that bring tax value and franchise fees to the city of Millersburg, which will benefit our residents. Because of our strong industrial base, Millersburg has been able to avoid additional fees on our residents that many other communities are finding necessary to impose in order to simply maintain operations of the city, public safety, stormwater, streets, etc. These new industrial partners will help us continue to provide needed services to our residents. And some of the reasons we go into this is because it directly relates to the budget. So that's the tie here. In anticipation of these industrial projects, the city planned for a buffer between residential areas north of Concert Road and the industrial land to the south, as well as rerouting of industrial and pass-through traffic off of Concert Road. In the summer of 2024, the city awarded and began construction on the Transition Parkway and Linear Park project. This project is anticipated to be complete in 2026. The funding for this project comes from a combination of property sales, system development charges paid by the new projects, and state grants. As an approved site under the Regionally Significant Industrial Sites, or RISIS program, funds the city has spent on these infrastructure improvements are eligible for reimbursement through the state in future years. That's through a payroll tax from the state. So we won't see that now, but a lot of this money that we're spending can come back to us. Except for the grants, we don't get reimbursed for this. Looking forward, as we head into fiscal year 25-26, construction projects will continue to be very visible within the community. In addition to the project described above, is currently doing expansion and Center Market and Pure Energy plan to begin construction of new facilities in 2025. The alignment of all the project schedules means a significant amount of change in a short period of time. Our proposed budget does not include any new positions, so talking about our personnel now, and generally maintains the status quo for operations in the general fund. The main difference from last year's budget are found in the capital projects. This past year, we experienced an 8% increase of our tax base from $788 million in assessed value due to continued new investment by our industries. So by just the regular increases, we can only grow at 3% per the state law. So this is new investment is what's getting us to the 8%. Additionally, we are seeing electric franchise fees increases this year primarily due to continued investment and production increases at ATI. We expect to see continued electric franchise fee increases as new industries begin operations over the next 2 to 3 years. The city is continuing discussions with the YMCA for a new facility incorporated into approximately 9.5 acres identified for a town center, which is envisioned to include a live-work environment featuring restaurants, professional and/or personal services, and open space for outdoor dining and community events. A master plan for development of this area is planned for the upcoming year. Our strategic plans are planned facility master plans, capital improvement program, development code, municipal code, and public policies and procedures continue to provide the guiding principles for the development of our budget. The strategic plan is currently being updated and any changes will be reflected in the fiscal year 26-27 budget. So then we go into highlights of the proposed budget, and we're supposed to tell you what changes from year to year, like what's different this upcoming year. So in the general fund, overall revenue increases are projected. Increase in tax revenue based on assessed value increases in electric franchise fees due to investments at ATI. Those new ones will be in future years, but not this coming year. Receipt of enterprise zone clawback fees associated with ATI investments. This was expected to begin in fiscal year 24-25, but it's now anticipated to begin in 25-26 instead. I'll show you that when we get to that part of the budget. Expected decrease in construction excise tax, which is a pass-through to GAPS, to the school district. Due to industrial construction projects in fiscal year 24-25. So 24-25 was a big year because of those projects. So next year, we don't know much of any construction coming, so we're not budgeting very much. We're not expecting much revenue, but we're also not budgeting much on the expenditure side. This shows us a revenue and an expenditure in the general fund building program. Large industrial projects in 24-25 resulted in collection of considerable system development charges. A significant decrease in SDC revenue is projected for next year. In administration, personnel completed the city manager transition. So this new budget will have a full year of the new engineering services director position. And you'll see 6 months of administrative support in place of the economic development manager that we had before. And this is really just for, this is Kevin's time to help support a few things as he's retired, but finishing up a couple of things. So what's left in here are some hours to help finish our continuity of operations plan, emergency services type things. So we just changed the name because it's really not economic development. It's finishing up these emergency services plans and helping probably run some training for us, for staff, in accordance with those plans. Let's see, materials and services expenditures for an urban reserve study are included in there. That's the only major change in that section. Capital expenditures, we already went over those projects. I won't list them again. In Parks and Recreation, materials and services, we are proposing to budget additional contracted seasonal help. We've had a discussion on whether we need to bring on a new staff person there. We're not proposing that for this year. We may request that next year, but we'd like to increase our hours for our contracted labor. And then we've gone over the capital expenditures. And the only one on there that you didn't see was ball field drag. We'll get to that in the budget. In the Parks and Rec, transfer of SDC funds received from Ball Corporation and Timber Lab to Economic Development Fund for construction of the linear park. So some of that transfer will be in the next year, although we've taken the funds in this year. And we added in a reserve account for parks capital projects that are not eligible for SDC funding. So we have a reserve account for SDC funds in the parks program, and we'll see that. But based on the feedback, we added another reserve account in there to show a little more money being set aside. Emergency services, no significant budgetary changes from the prior year. Equipment replacement, maintaining equipment replacement funds for city facilities and parks and recreation equipment. We increased that amount a little bit in this budget. No significant budgetary changes for the celebration or city events now program. In the street fund, transfer of funds to economic development for Transition Parkway. Decrease in system development charge revenue for the same reasons in the general fund. We are budgeting for grant funding and expenditures for the transportation system plan update. And actually we'll have an update to one of those numbers to present to you. Expenditure of SDC funds for the Woods Road shared use path design and design of the Cox Creek Bridge replacement. Stormwater, we're continuing funding for system cleaning and inspection. Sewer utility fund, ongoing operation of the system. Decrease in system development charge revenue. Capital projects that we already went over. And the water utility fund, similar decrease in system development charge revenues, increased water treatment plant operational costs, and pre-treatment intake study to address sediment from the reservoir drawdowns. Additional lead service line inventory work required by EPA and construction of capital project. And finally, in the Economic Development Fund, anticipated revenues from state grants associated with new industries, job creation. The Transition Parkway project, capital project, and then master planning for the commercial area. So there you go. There's your budget message.
I like how you broke that down. That's different than. Yes.
We did that a little bit last year, but I thought that was just a quick, easy, maybe not as easy to read, but to look at.
Yeah. Let me make a comment, question. I don't wanna go into it now because it's getting late, but could you be prepared next week to more fully explain the, what am I thinking of? Why did I lose my place? I forgot what it's called. The electric franchise fees. So I mean, I know we've always talked about, like, we get franchise fees. I would just really like more information on what those franchise fees are, how they're determined. Because I just happened to notice, because I don't use any power from the electric company. And over the last year and a half, my power bill's gone from $9 to $11 to $14 to $17. So I started to look last month and I said, whoa, I'm paying the franchise fee, not the electric company.
Yes, they found through.
So what's the point of the franchise fee? We're just taxing the residents more. We're not charging the electric company anything.
We have a slide on franchise fees fees actually coming up here. It talks about the amounts, but that would be a great time to talk about them, I think, and we can definitely talk about it.
They want their pound of flesh.
Well, I always thought, hey, I mean, granted, we're gonna get charged one way or another, but the fact that it's listed right on the bill is Millersburg franchise fee. Oh, that's wonderful.
I can tell you our power franchise fee is 5% of the revenue that they generate in Millersburg. But if you don't mind, we can hold it till we get to that slide.
Like I said, I don't wanna get.
Yeah, but I think we can, yeah, we can definitely talk about that. All right, we will move through these slides. So city trends and history. So we were trying, when we put these slides together several years ago, we were trying to set the stage for the background. Why is our budget the way it is? Why is the city the way it is? Many of you have seen this multiple times. I won't read everything on here. I'll just point out a few things. So there's information on here about how big the city is. Our current residential population, 3214. PSU does population estimates for those are our official population estimates for the state. Those numbers go into our state funding that we get. A lot of them are per capita. So it's important that that number is right because it affects our funding. History prior to incorporation, I'm going to skip over this, but just know there was stuff happening here back in the 1800s.
Doug can tell you all about it.
Yeah. The 1940s, 1960s, a lot of industrial development was happening in Millersburg. Several things have closed since then. And if anyone's not aware, industry, ATI specifically, is the reason Millersburg exists today as a city. I won't go into a lot of history, but if you're interested, ask me afterward or ask anybody else who's heard the presentation. Well, some of it's on the slide, but 1974, Millersburg incorporated. It was a close call, but it did become a city. Things related to our budget. When the paper mill closed, it resulted in a reduction of franchise fees. Before that time, Millersburg was not levying a property tax. They had the ability to, but they weren't levying it. In 2000, voters adopted the tax base of $3.50 per thousand. That is our max tax rate we can ever, unless the state law changes, that we can ever levy, and we are levying $3.50 now. So when people say, I don't want my taxes to go up, well, technically your taxes aren't gonna go up. Based on, we're not gonna increase your city tax because we can't. Your property tax will go up because of your assessed value increasing, but we're not changing your rate. Now, many cities are having to do extra fees on top of their taxes, property taxes, because it just isn't enough to keep up with running a city. But go ahead and go on. This is a lot of industrial development and discussion of our fire station. And when we started levying our full tax rate of $3.50 per thousand was in 2018, when we took fire service in under the city's responsibility. Previously, it was 2 different fire districts, and they had tax rates that went directly to them. So in that process, the city said, we're going to take on the responsibility for fire protection and increase our tax levy to its full amount. So that effectively actually made everybody's total taxes they could pay go down. Our tax increased, but now they don't have a rural fire district fee. So of that $3.50 per thousand, $2 of that goes straight to Albany Fire. So we operate the city on $1.50 per thousand, plus our franchise fees, which you'll see.
Man, good when those fire guys are full.
Welcome to return.
You can watch a little bit. And you know what draws people to Millersburg? This slide, we've used the same slide for the last few years. I don't think it's changed, but if you go, have input, we can change it in the future. Large lot sizes, easy access to I-5, and we hear this all the time, the rural feel. We are a city, but we're surrounded by farmland, and it does feel more rural. Result of this recent population growth, and when I show you the chart, I'll explain what I mean by recent. But you go back. Change in demographics, was primarily industry and farming, and we've had a lot of residential growth since then, which has changed priorities of people in the city. Now we're seeing a slowing in population growth, but it's caused an increased need for city services. And as much as people say they don't like regulation, it's caused an increased desire and need for regulation in the city because nobody likes it until their neighbor's doing something they don't like, and then they want the city to regulate it. Or or they just, you know, think for the city, we should have these things in place. We're a growing city. We should have more structure. And that expectation has come with the populations.
Or the state just decides to tell us.
Well, there's that too.
That's increased
That's
as
increased.
well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, this is our population, graph. The orange at the beginning is every 10 years. So just that scale is completely different, but the blue is every year, since 2010. And you can see we were experiencing a lot of residential growth 2017 to 2020. And now it's really tapered off. And the reason for that is primarily, I'd say all, property owners not being willing to sell. We have some large tracts of land. We had developers who wanted to keep developing, but the property owners wouldn't sell. Also, wetlands is a component of that because they don't want to sell because they're not getting what they think they should get for it in some cases because the wetlands that are involved is very expensive to mitigate and build on wetlands. But our assessed value for the city is not reflective of our property or of our population. Sorry. The assessed value has continued to grow, and that's really because of the industrial investments that have been going on. That last 2 years, 8% has been our growth rate, and that's, you know, 3% you could say is just the appreciation of everything, but the rest of that is from investments in our industry. But you want to go back?
Yep, that.
Go back. Oh, this one.
That one.
That one. So this is our assessed value by type for 2024. So the county publishes all these numbers. This isn't hard to get this information. Commercial and commercial and industrial makes up 54%, residential is 46%. Last year, the numbers were 48 and 52. So we've shifted a little bit more in assessed value toward industrial from last year to this year. And I'm not even saying commercial because we have so little, a minor contribution. I expect in the next few years that is going to continue to shift to be more industrial. It won't be reflected in our assessed values for several years because we have enterprise zone agreements on these new projects, and they won't pay property taxes to Millersburg during that time, except for the clawback, which we'll get to later on. So it won't be reflected in these numbers until they come off the enterprise zone. And then property taxes, if anybody ever, sorry, it's a little hard to see, but you know, people are concerned about that property tax rates. Yeah, property taxes go up because your assessed value goes up, but your rate, 1560 and a little bit, and Millersburg is the current property tax rate. Of that, city of Millersburg is $3.50 per thousand. The rest is made up by the county, the school districts primarily, and then a few other things there. So although people pay a lot in taxes, we make up 22% of that.
Can you go back real quick, sorry?
Yeah. And I didn't do a slide this year. We have in the past where we compared our property tax rate to others in the valley area. I didn't update all those numbers, but we're low. I mean, we're lower than all the other communities.
So 2.7 million, is that what we get out of 350?
Yeah, sorry, I should have explained that. That is $3.50 per thousand times our current assessed value. So when we get into the budget, you see that $2.7 million is our taxes we're bringing in.
And we only get 1.5%, so we get a smaller piece of that.
Well, we get that full 2.7, but then we give Albany $2. Is that what you mean? The project?
Yeah, because you said 2% goes to Albany, or
$2 goes to Albany and $1.50. Yeah. I mean, it all comes into us. It shows as revenue in our, so I said that a little bit wrong. We pay them then, and that's in the emergency services.
Okay. Gosh, if you showed that as a pie piece, it would look even more dramatic. How little we get, yeah.
And that 2.7 is the raw number there. We do a little bit of adjusting to it in the budget because we don't collect 100%. Top 10 assessed value in the city. I always think this is interesting. ATI is by far our biggest, but some of the others shuffle around sometimes a little bit. So that's where we are today. ATI, Flakeboard, which is Arauco. Pacific Power is our third biggest assessed value in Millersburg. Yeah, because of all the infrastructure.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting to see.
And then the others.
Yeah,
franchise
could you go back to that real quick? Like. Lake Board, do they have any, I'm just wondering if some of those have, any of the, you just used the word,
enterprise zone.
yes, thank you.
ATI on this list.
I know ATI, it's ongoing, it just seems like they,
Every time they do a big investment, then
Yeah.
they ask for
any
that,
of those
which,
coming off like Lake Board by chance, or they?
Lakeport doesn't have any.
Yeah. Is,
Ty Square
Ty- I was
does.
gonna say Ty
Ty
Square on there?
does, but they're not on this. They do.
Oh.
So actually, just met with Ty Squared a week ago or a little bit more. They were meeting with the state and about incentives, and I was invited. They're planning some large investments soon. Ty Squared is, yeah. So that might bump them up into this. Not necessarily expansions of their footprint of their facility yet, although that may come in a few years. But investments in equipment and increasing their employees. And I think they're gonna go from like 35 to 100 employees or something.
And Love's isn't on there? Is there, they're still under a?
This is just the top 10 assessment.
They're
They probably are. You can see.
Commercial too, so it's gonna be.
It's in this category.
So this is an assessed value, not.
This is total assessed value, it doesn't matter what category it's in. Alan Dixie Sullivan are in there.
Yeah, that's.
They own multiple properties in Millersburg, so you add them all together and they hit this list, so.
That's the first time they've been on the list.
I think they were on it last year.
They've been on it before.
Yeah.
All right, and.
Okay.
Cool.
All right, here's our franchise fee slide. I'll go over the numbers and then we can talk about questions, Mike. So these two graphs are different scales, so keep that in mind. The one on the left, Republic, Northwest Natural, Comcast, CenturyLink, is a much, if we put these on the same graph, they'd be all at the bottom and look flat. You can see Republic and Northwest Natural have been growing at a pretty good rate. Comcast and CenturyLink, Comcast, I think we see that spike there because of COVID and everybody working from home, most likely. That's my guess, but I don't know that for sure. And CenturyLink has just been tailing off forever.
They're going.
And it reflects what we know of what's going on in the city. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but we could look at what the franchise fee percentages for each of those. But we do have franchise agreements with all of them. Pacific Power on the right is by far our biggest, and they're a 5% franchise fee. And you can see the blue line is the total of all of them, which just reflects what Power is doing because they're the biggest. So we had a big increase this year, and we like to project conservatively. So next year we're projecting a moderate increase, but we may see a big increase like this again.
Is that really entirely due to ATI or the 40% increases that they've passed through?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's ATI's power usage, but their rates definitely we've had some conversations about, our franchise agreements say that it's this percent of their revenue. We had a lot of discussions with Republic with redoing theirs recently. Auditing what they're telling us that the numbers that they give us is really hard for us to do because we have to get deep into their financials to know that number is correct. And we haven't, I don't know of any city that's doing that, but I do know we have a listserv for city managers and there's been a lot of discussion about a couple specific ones, nobody who's in Millersburg, but who have not been paying the city. And they were all communications ones, smaller ones. And, them digging into, how do you know how much they're paying you? But franchise fees are very common. Most cities have them for when utilities want to be in your right of way. This is their fee to be in our right of way, to be able to put their utilities in there, to be able to use the right of way to access their utilities. For example, streets, power, or the garbage trucks drive on our streets. They do a lot of wear and tear on our streets. The franchise fee is part of them paying for their use of our facilities. That's how they're structured. Just like any fee that's part of running a business, they may choose to pass that along to their customer. And I think they may be required to show it on their bills. I'm not sure about that on power, but yeah, we have not, there have been some discussions in the past, I believe, about increasing percentages of franchise fees, and that very discussion, they'll just pass it along to the customer. So why would we do that?
what's coming up on.
I was just curious what it was, so yeah. It's on everyone's bill. Like I said, I just never paid attention to it until I was looking to see why is it so much when I don't even use any power.
$14 looks really good in a
Yeah, you gotta buy the solar
You
too.
got the whole solar thing going.
When we get into the budget and our revenues, franchise fees are a big part of our operating revenues for the city.
So
Building permits issued by calendar year.
not a big part of our.
Not a big part of our revenue at all, no. We started showing you this when we ran our high residential growth phase. We thought that was pretty telling of what was going on, and now you can see how it's tailed off. So the blue lines are single family residential building permits. So that's really what tells the story of how many houses are getting built. The orange lines are all permits, so mechanical, electrical, plumbing, those are always going to be higher, but they follow the same trend.
Gosh, 16 to 2020 was a.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had a lot going on there. Yeah. There were multiple subdivisions were getting built. And again, the developers wanted to keep going at that rate. They
Still would, if the property owners would sell, they would be building out here like gangbusters, because everybody loves Millersburg. Everybody wants to move here. There's nowhere left to build until the.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're also known for being pretty easy to work with. Hear that a lot. All right, 2023 adopted budget versus actual. So we show you this because 2024-25 is the year we're in today, right? We can't compare our budget to what we actually spent because we're not there yet. But we go back to the prior year and report out on just big picture. How did that go? So the left chart is budget, is revenues, sorry, and the right side is expenditures. So blue budgeted revenues and orange is actual revenues. So it looks like what we want it to look like for the most part, where our actual revenues are higher than our budget, because we'd like to budget it a little bit conservatively. We want to be as accurate as we can, but we don't want to over budget our revenues. The one here that is different is economic development. We budgeted high on the revenues that year because we were expecting, that's when we were starting to try to understand the timing of when things like system development charges were going to get paid and grant funding was going to come in. And that really ended up pushing mostly to the next year. So on the expenditure side, again, we spent less than our budget in every category. So that's good. Mostly a lot of those, where you see a bigger difference, it's a capital project that got pushed to the next year. Any questions on that? And in the budget itself, there's a column that is the actuals for 23-24. So for every line item, you see the actual amount that per audit, because we do that after the audit every year, that was spent if you ever want to look at that. And that is the last slide that we have done in the past before the next meeting. So it's 8:30. We can keep going if you want to, but.
I'm gonna open this up for public comment. There you go. Any public comment? Anyone online?
No, we have no one online except the lovely Miss Hedrick.
I'm half asleep. We're not really adjourning, we're only recessing until Monday, correct?
No, this,
meeting.
yeah, but this is a meeting. Monday is a hearing. It's different.
We wanna. Well, it's good.
Gotta find a little.
No. On what?
I don't know.
I'm
Thank you, Lori. See you Monday.
Not again. If you've got your own.